Topping the headlines, we bring you the latest development in where another set of human remains found last Monday in Edgecombe County have been identified. Friday night, a registered sex offender wanted in Dare County, North Carolina, was arrested in Rocky Mount. The Young Professionals Network of Rocky Mount is hosting 2 events recognizing its 2011 kickoff, and today our area is celebrating the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. I'm Marie Torres. These stories and more coming up on your Newsbreak briefing.
From WHIG-TV, this is Newsbreak 31. Now, here's Marie Torres.
Hello and happy Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. You're watching WHIG-TV Newsbreak, and we're briefing you on news going on in our community. We bring you the latest development in where another set of human remains were found last Monday in Edgecombe County. Friday night, with the confirmation of the medical examiner's office, Edgecombe County Sheriff James Knight confirms that the remains belong to 37-year-old missing woman Yolanda Renee Lancaster. Lancaster has been missing since March 2009. On last Monday, nearly 2 years after her reported disappearance, a hunter looking for deer antlers came across her bones near Battleboro Leggett Road in Edgecombe County. This is within the vicinity of where several other remains belonging to missing women from Rocky Mount were found over the last 5 years. This makes 9 women in total with similar backgrounds, many who knew each other, all to be found dead. Their remains mostly discovered in rural area fields. One more woman, 49-year-old Joyce Renee Durham, who has a similar background to the slain women, is still missing. Durham has been missing since 2007. If you know anything about her whereabouts or have information about these murders, you're strongly urged to call Crime Stoppers at 252-977-1111, and your call can be anonymous. WHIG-TV is the first to break this next story. Friday night, a registered sex offender wanted in Dare County, North Carolina, was arrested. He is 47-year-old George Sutton, who has an extensive criminal background that includes burglary, drugs, and even second-degree rape charges. And get this, he was living right under our noses. Based on our response to concerned citizens and our collective calls to Rocky Mount Police Friday afternoon, Sutton was arrested Friday night during a police stakeout of the group home he was staying at 1400 Westmount Drive in Rocky Mount. According to the North Carolina Sex Offender Registry, Sutton's known address, which is visible to the public online, was listed at the group home. Area citizens have had several concerns over activity going on at the group home over the last 2 years, stating having a wanted ex-con next door was just one piece of this picture. Here's some of what they told us.
On to the state, I've contacted this Miss Ames in Raleigh, and I've contacted the complaint hotline, and I've spoken to a Miss Lou Morton, and she's supposed to be calling me back, letting me know what they're going to do with the facility, but we're getting the runarounds. I just don't understand. If they keep finding these kind of violations, there's got to be some kind of penalty. I mean, why do we keep allowing this to go on? And especially, we got a criminal over there that's got a warrant out. Somebody was not doing their homework.
Those citizens want to commend Rocky Mount Police for adhering to their calls and for the swift arrest. Sutton was wanted for second-degree trespassing and assault on a female in Dare County. Shockingly, that warrant had been out on him since 2003. Friday, Rocky Mount Police Captain Laura Fonstock told us Dare County never notified them that Sutton may be in our area. We'll be bringing you the rest of the story later on this week, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Today, our area is celebrating the Dr. Martin Luther King Day holiday. This morning at the Dunn Center on the campus of North Carolina Wesleyan College, locals gathered for Rocky Mount's 23rd annual Unity Breakfast. The keynote speaker for the event was Reverend Scott Bass. Here's what he had to say.
He opened the scroll and read words that went like this. He said, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me." And he didn't stop there. and he didn't ask for special treatment, has anointed me to bring good news to the poor, has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free. And it says that he went on a bit further, and it says that shortly after he had read these words, he sat down and the people were oohing and aahing. That's not what my Bible says, but it's something like that. They were amazed at his words. They were speaking well of him. In my tradition, there's a phrase, when a preacher, when a speaker says too much, people will say, okay, now you've quit preaching and gone to meddling. I think that's what Jesus must have done, because a few verses after they were oohing and aahing at these beautiful words, even about just talking about this kind of anointing, he went on to say a little bit more about what that kind of anointing meant. And he told two stories that questioned, challenged, apparently challenged too much their beliefs about who were insiders, who were outsiders, who was us, who was them. And connecting that with your theme today, I guess he was really challenging their definition of the word our kind of people. Because the heroes in the two stories he told were not, that they were them, they weren't us, if you get my meaning. And within a few verses after Jesus had quit preaching and gone to meddling, they were trying to throw him off a cliff, the first attempt on his life. Dr. King, obviously, was a person who understood that kind of anointing. The kind of anointing that reaches down to help someone up and reaches up to help someone down. Humility is a good thing.
The Unity Breakfast was free and open to the public. In addition to today's breakfast, volunteers throughout our community are participating in community service projects. In other news, the Young Professionals Network of Rocky Mount is hosting two events recognizing its 2011 kickoff on Tuesday, January 18th. The events, a luncheon starting at 12 noon at the Hampton Inn in Rocky Mount, and an after-hours social at 5:30 p.m. at Chico's Restaurant in Rocky Mount, are free and open to the public, though an RSVP is required. The YPN Rocky Mount is hoping to bring members together, enable them to welcome the new year, and introduce YPN's newest officers and plans for activities as well as programs for 2011. In addition, individuals will have the opportunity to join and renew their memberships, as well as learn how they can get involved hosting upcoming events. Registration can be made by calling YPN at 252-557-9761. When we return on Newsbreak, we'll have the latest in sports and weather. But first, here's a tribute to the late, great Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr.
You waited patiently. Now it's time. Clearance time at Davenport Honda in Rocky Mount. Hundreds of brand new Hondas, all tagged with the year's lowest prices, with savings up to $6,000 and a lifetime warranty on every vehicle. But hurry, Because at Davenport Honda, these deals are the one thing that won't last forever. Davenport Honda in Rocky Mount, your dealership for life.
WHIG, your community station, is bringing you news that's impacting our area. If you see breaking news or have an event you'd like us to cover, make sure you contact us at 252-885-1814 or email us at marie.whigtv@gmail.com. WHIG TV News Break, your voice in the community.
The Country Inn & Suites is your home away from home with a staff that always treats you as family. If you or your church or company has visitors, give them a great Rocky Mount welcome with a special discount on their overnight or extended stay. Not only is the Country Inn & Suites a comfortable place, we'll spoil them with fresh cookies and complimentary breakfast. We are filled with luxuries like an indoor pool, fitness center, and a guest laundry. The Business Center includes a boardroom, connection to high-speed internet, and catering for meetings is always available. Call me, Donna Chavis, at 252-442-0500 for a tour and or to set up your corporate rate. You're always welcome as family in the Country Inn & Suites, Rocky Mount.
Thanks for staying tuned. Here's a look at the days ahead in weather with Fred Holdsworth. Fred?
On the way, and maybe plenty of it. The dividing line this time between the haves and the have-nots appears to be U.S. Highway 1, well to our west through the Raleigh area. Locations to the east of that highway should get could see as much as an inch of rain, maybe even a little more. And areas to the west of it the rain will be hard to come by. Now they could see some freezing rain around the Greensboro, High Point, Winston-Salem, the Triad, and they could see a little bit to start, but for the most part, the sleet, freezing rain, frozen stuff will all be to our north. Low pressure is developing in the Gulf of Mexico, and that will move up our coast and probably come inland over the Sounds area later tonight, and that is what is going to bring our rain. Let's take a look at our radar, and we can see right now, this is the low pressure system. It's right down here, well to the west of the Fort Myers, Florida area. The barometer in that low, 29.85. This is a fairly strong low pressure system. A lot of rain associated with it as the Gulf has opened up to moisture now. The low will pull moisture with it. Another low will develop to the east of Savannah. This is what is going to move over the coastal Carolina. On the radar, we see some areas of moderate rain right in here, near Jacksonville, and over near Tallahassee, moving up into South Georgia. And then freezing rain along the leading edge of this band of moisture moving through Tennessee into Kentucky. Most of the snow today is found right now over eastern Iowa, moving into Wisconsin and out of the arrowhead of Minnesota right up in here. Behind it, we have some rain and snow showers scattered with rain along the Pacific coast in the Puget Sound area of Washington. So for today, be prepared for some rain. That will be developing late this afternoon and into tonight and early tomorrow morning. Well, let's take a look at our forecast now. Today will be cloudy. There's a chance of rain developing during the afternoon with a high of 47, east wind at 6. Rain tonight with a low of 42, northeast wind 8 miles per hour. Tuesday, cloudy with a slight chance of rain during the morning with a high of 53, north wind at 6. Tuesday night, slight chance of showers with a low of 40, west wind at 8. Wednesday, sunny with a high of 55 and a west wind 10 to 15 miles per hour. Wednesday night, clear with a low of 28. Thursday, sunny with a high of 47. Thursday night, chance of rain with a low of 35. Chance of rain Friday morning, becoming sunny later in the day Friday with a high of 53 and a high of 43 and a low of 30 on Friday night. Our high temperature yesterday, 54. Our low this morning, our current temperature of 34 degrees. And that's a look at your Rocky Mount weather. Now back.
Thanks, Fred. And here with us is our sports reporter, Edward Green. And tell us what's going on in sports.
Well, you know, there's a lot of good things happening right now. We finally got the schools a little bit back on track. Obviously, they have today off. Then they come back tomorrow for a day, and then they're off Wednesday again.
Okay.
So it's kind of going to be an interesting week shifting around. And after the weather delays we had last week, it'll be nice to see them get on a regular schedule maybe the week after.
Right.
But with the weather changing plans last week, some exams at the high schools are still taking place this week. But it's not just the students getting tested, with many teams beginning to make a mark in their conference play. Rocky Mount fell for the third time in 4 games in boys basketball with a tight 62-60 loss to Wilson Hunt. Now, although the Griffons fall to 11-5 on the season and 1-1 in conference play, the last 3 losses have come by a combined total of 10 points. So they're playing close games, they're just not able to pull through. Hunt now leads the conference, though, with a 3-0 mark, so they've jumped out to a very early lead. Nash Central used a big 22-4 third quarter to slip past Wilson Fike 58-49 to improve to 1-1 in the conference, while Fike drops to 0-2 in the conference and has now lost 11 straight overall. North Edgecombe is 8-1 on the season and 2-0 in league play after a win Friday against Wilson, and they followed that with a 10-point win on Saturday at Tarboro. Now, in the college ranks, the last undefeated ACC men's basketball team fell Saturday night as North Carolina lost to Georgia Tech at their place 78-58. It was the lowest scoring output for a Roy Williams coached team, and UNC now joins Florida State, Duke, Boston College, and Clemson as one-loss ACC teams. So a logjam at the top right now that I'm sure will be decided in the coming weeks. And lastly, we have reached the Final Four in the NFL with a string of very enjoyable and close games this weekend. On Saturday, Pittsburgh rallied from a 2-touchdown halftime deficit and scored a late TD to defeat rival Baltimore 31-24. Now that night, the Green Bay Packers defeated the NFC 1 seed Atlanta 48-21 by scoring 35 unanswered points after going down 14-7 early in the second quarter. So a barrage of points propelling the Packers to the NFC Championship game. Now on Sunday, the Chicago Bears ended Seattle's dream season with a convincing 35-24 win at Soldier Field that was never as close as the final score make it seem. And after a week of smack talk that rivaled even the best prize fighters, the New York Jets backed up their bravado with a 28-21 win at fierce rival New England. Now that sets up the conference championship games this Sunday. Green Bay travels to Chicago for a 3 p.m. start, and those teams split their regular season meetings at 1 win apiece. And the Jets go to Pittsburgh, where the Jets actually won in Week 15, and that game will be at 6:30. So, Marie, a lot of enjoyable games, and high school games still going on this week. So now we're getting in the middle of conference play, and teams are really starting to rise, and some are starting to kind of fall and need to start making some moves to get back in the race.
Okay, all right. Well, we look forward to seeing them playing.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Edward.
Thank you, Marie.
And thank you for tuning in to Newsbreak. Join us tomorrow for our live news at noon. For WHIG-TV, I'm Marie Torres. Here's more of our tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Have a great day.
what good news for the poor is. What I found in my own life was that this recovery of sight to the blind that was a part of that passage, there's an awful lot of blindness, an awful lot of blindness. I've experienced myself, given my background, part of which I described to you. It took me a long time before I recognized that how much that my privilege, my whiteness, my experiences had blinded me to the experiences of others. The blinders of white privilege are not the only kinds of blinders. So just, if you have a different skin color than me, you're not off the hook. Too often people who rise up begin to get blinder as they rise up, blinder to the needs of those they leave behind, and many times they do leave them behind. John Perkins is another person who was beaten badly during the civil rights struggle. He has devoted his life in the last several decades to building communities, and he talks about the need for people who have the opportunity to rise up and better themselves rather than to flee the neighborhoods where they come from. He challenges people to stay and or to go and come back. He talks about relocation as one of the building blocks in rebuilding communities. He talks about redistribution, and that's one of those words that a lot of folks get nervous about. Somebody will hear that and call me a communist or a socialist or something. But what he was talking about redistribution is not just collecting the time and talent and treasure, the education, the expertise in enclaves within a city, a neighborhood, a community, but distributing the talent, the expertise, the talents and abilities throughout the community. Part of the experience that I found so helpful in getting over some of my own blindness and learning what it meant to even, begin to understand what good news for the poor was, it required getting to know people who I didn't consider to be part of us. Part of that was as simple as walking downtown and taking the time to sit with a person who was down and out and living on the streets and have a conversation. Now, there's a need for food, for clothing, for shelter, but many will say, well, people like to talk, many of the people without homes in Raleigh will say, people like to talk about us, but they don't like to talk to us. And they certainly don't like to listen to us. In Rocky Mount and elsewhere, understanding and enlarging the definition of the word our and really building community that can last and can be sustained includes getting to know in a personal way what's going on and where those needs are, and understanding better from that, getting to know in a personal way what to do about it. I was, one of the things I was a little bit concerned about anytime in front of a group, because I do a lot of work on a controversial issue, the death penalty. And I'm like, oh gosh, I don't even know why they invite me sometimes to talk, because people get nervous about something controversial like the death penalty. Dr. King was clearly opposed to it and said so many times. But I understand that that's controversial, and sometimes people begin to say that some of the us's and them's that go on have to do with people's viewpoints. A part of my getting to know what's going on with the death penalty has led me to understand, first of all, that people who commit murder have families, have people who love and care about them. And once you know that, once your eyes are open to that, and once you begin to understand a little bit about what they truly need, it's really difficult to unknow it and unsee it. And likewise, when you've sat with a mother whose son had a bullet in his head and is dealing with that permanent loss and trauma, it's hard to unknow that information and unsee what you've seen. I want to wrap up with actually asking you for some information, and that is, I literally want you to raise your hand. If you don't feel comfortable raising your hand, I can't see you anyway much, but I actually want to invite you to raise your hand and look around just for a moment. If your own dreams include adequate shelter and food for your family, would you raise your hand? And would you look around? Okay, if your own dreams include having access to high-quality health care, would you raise your hand? Would you look around? If your own dreams include having safe schools where your children can receive a high-quality education, would you raise your hands? And look around. I don't even think you need to look around by now, right? Don't we already have collective dreams? Don't we already understand what our dreams are? The Jesus that Dr. King often talked about and quoted and preached about, and the one whose anointing passage I read a few minutes ago, called on us to love our neighbor as ourselves and love even our enemy. That's a really, really big definition of us.